Hello, hello, I'm Cutsy, and welcome to my channel. Excuse my voice, I am still recovering from this dreaded Mahakan plague, whatever it is that I got. But I'm almost there, slowly but surely. So, I have lots of cough drops going today, and let's do this. So today's nails are going to be my interpretation of some things that I've seen lately, and it's an Icy Blue Heart design, fueled by an icy cold Coke, and today's topic is going to be some true crime. So as you can see, I'm buffing up the nails. I'm not going to do a lot of explaining today, because everything that I'm doing is pretty much things you've already heard me talk about doing, but I'm just going to do them and try and get a little bit better. I'm going to do some icicles on some of these nails, some absent hearts on some of them, and I'm going to use, one thing I'm going to do is use a mix of clear acrylic and glitter to give it a nice kind of icicle-y shine on these. And then I'm going to cure them under the light, and it's going to make that heart, it's going to keep that glitter in place and give it a really, really nice, kind of different texture. I'm going to paint these, and then I'm also they're going to be a kind of metallic blue, frosty blue color, but I'm going to put matte over top of them, and it turns that frost into just a really, really cool finish. So enjoy watching this, and I'm going to start our topic of the day. So one of the things about being sick is I've had tons of time to just have no energy at all and just lay in bed and watch my normal go-tos, which are Golden Girls and Forensic Files. I usually switch between those two, a couple other crime shows, maybe some Law and Order SVU. But I got bored with those, so I decided to go looking, and I found on Discovery Plus this series called Death by Fame. I'd never seen it before. I clicked on it. It's got 3 seasons, so I binge watched the first one, and I gotta say, it's pretty good. Now, the first season, episode 2, is called Man of Anarchy. And one of the shows that I used to love was Sons of Anarchy. I got hooked. And that was a show that I had to watch every single week. I got completely drawn into all the characters. The acting was so great. I literally felt like I was sitting there watching this. I had to know what was going to happen next every week. Well, one of my favorite characters was one of the young prospects on there. And I'm flipping through, I see his picture in this Death by Fame. And his name was Johnny Lewis. His first big break was a commercial for, as anybody that knows me, my favorite pizza, Pizza Hut. He was adorable, and he was really a great actor. He was really, doing well, and starting to kind of find his place. And anyway, he had appeared in shows like the O.C., Bones, Shark, Cold Case, Criminal Minds, a handful of movies. I believe one of the Aliens versus Predator movies he was in. But anyway, he moved to Hollywood. He and his family moved to Hollywood when he was 18. Most people said that he was a very sweet, kind of calm kid. As he was up and coming, he eventually met, a young singer named Katy Perry. That was in 2005, before she was real famous. They started to date. And everybody that knew them thought that they were just an adorable couple, kind of the whole, girl next door, boy next door. But a little less than a year of them dating, they broke up. It was in 2006. And her management team ended up putting out a statement, and all they said was she needed to focus on her upcoming album and tour and her career. She was starting to make it big, and that she really needed to just focus on that. But was it? I mean, that's kind of weird. If you really, really like somebody and, you know, you're going to try to figure out a way to make it work, and you're not going to have your, in my opinion, your management team, you know, come out and tell everybody, oh, sorry, you know, she has to go do her homework, she can't date. You know, did she sense something back then? You know, us as women, we do one of two things when we sense a red flag. We either run to it and try to fix it, or we run away as fast as we can and get on with our life because we know it's not going to do us any good. So maybe she saw something back then. Anyway, he continued to get great spots on some of my really favorite shows like CSI, again, Bones, Criminal Minds, Cold Case. But in 2008 came his really big break. He was cast as Kip Halfsack Epps on Son of Anarchy. He was one of the prospects. He was one of my favorite characters. I just loved him so much. They just made fun of him and they picked on him so much. I would literally sometimes get angry watching the episodes. So just leave him alone, because he just was such a sweetie on the show. You could really, really feel his character. And it was said, a lot of some of the on the set, like the hairdressers and the makeup artists, said that the rest of the men on the set really, really seemed to try and keep in character, even when they weren't filming or whatnot, when they were in between things, but not Johnny. So he always kind of stuck to himself. He would go off and he would either eat by himself, read a book, read poetry, write poetry, you know, something like that. He wasn't into being that biker lifestyle, that stereotypical biker. And he didn't take any kind of, you know, chemical enhancements. He didn't drink. He led a clean life. He didn't do any of that stuff. I know his parents were really heavy into Scientology, and that was something to be said that was probably very hard for him growing up to be part of. But this was something that I did not realize. So here he had this big break. He had, you know, all these great TV shows that he got to be on, blah, blah, blah. He still was not happy. And he ended up going to the writer of the show and the director of the show and asking to be written off in the second season, because he did not want to be part of the violence. He didn't want to be part of the whole aura of what was going on in the Sons of Anarchy set. He didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And I remember the season finale that year, because I was sitting there. I had rushed home to watch it. And it was when they had kidnapped the baby. And he was in that house trying to save the baby from the Irishman. And we went to lunch to grab the bassinet. The Irishman stabbed him. It was little baby Abel. I remember that. His roles after, and I was crushed. As were a bunch of people. I remember hearing how upset the public was that they took our half-sack. They took our prospect, you know. Well, anyway, his roles after that seemed to kind of, friends noticed that his roles after that seemed to take a little bit darker turn, took a little bit more from him. And they seemed to go right down that same avenue that he had said that he wanted to get away from, and that was why he quit Sons of Anarchy and asked to break his contract. You know, was it too late? Had he already absorbed all that dark negativity that role required him to live in his head? You know, did some of the other roles push that along to where it was just too late? He was already there. So we get to October 30th, 2011, and it said that he goes for a motorcycle ride to clear his head. 2 hours outside of LA, he crashes at a high speed. Ambulance come, they pick him up, they take him away. He's checked out. He wasn't wearing a helmet, which Again, friends and family said is so unlike him because one of the criteria of working on the Sons of Anarchy set was they really, really, really pushed hard about motorcycle safety and it is apparently a state law that you had to wear a motorcycle helmet in California. And he wasn't the type, from what they knew of him, to break that law or to take a chance like that because they knew about motorcycle safety. It was drilled into them. But he managed to not even have a concussion. He had some minor injuries and he walked away from it. So then we get to January 2012. And Johnny is found in the house of some strangers. When they confront him, he fights with them, hitting them with glass bottles, biting them, pushing them, shoving them, hitting them. They claim no matter what they did to fight him off. These were two men. Said no matter what they did to fight him off, it didn't faze him. He had like superhuman strength. When he was arrested, when the police got there and they arrested him, he told them that he broke in to save a baby he had heard crying inside the residence. So, this is after his motorcycle accident. He let them check him out, but he didn't let them give him an MRI. He didn't let them do any of that. He said he was against all of that. He thought it was putting poisons in your body, blah, blah, blah. So what was going on? I mean, is he putting himself back in to the time Sons of Anarchy, thinking he's hearing baby Abel crying? I mean, how weird. Well, anyway, he ends up getting charged with trespassing, burglary, assault with a deadly weapon, and is sent to Twin Towers Jail in L.A. He was in jail for 8 days before his dad bailed him out. Now, like I said before, I also found out he was taking care of his parents. So, his dad getting him out of jail, did he get him out of jail because it was what was best for him, or did he get him out of jail because he needed him to be out of jail? Apparently, in those 8 days that he was there, though, he repeatedly banged his head on the concrete and once tried to jump from the second-tier balcony of the cell block down to the concrete floor. 8 days later, he was free again. He goes to live with his parents. Johnny ends up developing a crippling sensitivity to light while he's there. So much so that he keeps getting caught turning off the fuse box at his parents' home to ensure no lights could be switched on. February 10th, 2012. Santa Monica. He meets a family at a local frozen yogurt shop. They talk for a little while, then he says his goodbyes. As the family leaves, the dad hears and sees somebody running up behind him. He's struck in the head all of a sudden. It was Lewis. He was arrested for assault and gives no explanation why he did it. February 18th, 2012, at 9:23 a.m., Mrs. Merkel hears someone trying to break into her window. When she asked the man what he was doing, he said, "I'm just looking for my friend Bob." He walks away, but when police arrive, he was still there and he was arrested. His lawyer had it set up for him. Now he's got this record of doing these things. His lawyer had it set up for him to plead guilty. He was supposed to go to either a mental health treatment center for 2 years or jail for 1 year. He refused both and decided to go to trial pro se on his own. No lawyer. What would have happened if he had just gone, I mean, but he refused mental health treatment, so what do you do? Ends up, he's convicted, he spends his jail time, but he only spends a couple months there, and on September 21st, he ends up getting released due to overcrowding. His father picks him up from jail and moves him right to a place called the Writer's Villa. This is a huge mansion owned by a woman named Kathy Davis, who was a huge supporter of the arts in Hollywood at the time. And she rented rooms out to many, many different, musicians, artists, actors. It was just kind of like a place for them to go and have fun and live and flow and be artistic and have parties with celebrities. NYPD cast supposedly hung out there. The cast from 90210 supposedly hung out there. People like that. Well, apparently, his dad had neglected to tell her any of the things that little Mr. Johnny had been up to lately. So she had no clue what was going on with him, what kind of things he had been doing or had gotten caught or gotten in trouble for. So anyway, the day of September 26th comes along. And neighbors outside hear screams, so they call 911. When the police get there, they find Lewis in the driveway with obvious life-ending head injuries. It looked like he had fallen. The neighbors next door said that earlier that day that he had come over and introduced himself, telling them, "Hey, I'm your new neighbor. I'd like to, nice to meet you, blah, blah, blah." And said he seemed very nice, kind of odd, but had no idea who he was. But they said, "Thank you, okay, have a nice day," and he left. And the next reports from them were that he had come back over a little while later, really agitated and angry, and started to get in a physical altercation with a painting contractor that was there at their house. And so then they get involved. And now all three of them are in this physical altercation, all four of them, are in this physical altercation, trying to get this crazed man, whom they don't even know, to get out of there and leave them alone. And they said they eventually had to get in the house, and he was trying to get in the house after them, and they repeatedly were slamming his arm in the door over and over and over again, and it just didn't faze him. He had this superhuman strength that they could not, no matter what they did to fight him, it didn't faze him. Now here's the second report of someone else who doesn't even know the other victims, stating about him having this superhuman strength that they didn't know if they were even going to be able to stop him and protect themselves against him, because no matter what they did to defend themselves, it was like they did absolutely nothing. He was so powerful and overpowered them, and if you tried to hurt him to get him to back off, he just didn't even blink. So here's a second, claim of that happening. So the police decide to go over next door and go in the house. Upon entering the house, they find that it's completely torn apart. There's glass everywhere, papers strewn everywhere. Just looks like a tornado went through. And they walk in, and they find the first room, which was Lewis's room. They find a hammer that's dripping and coated in a red substance. They go a little further down the hallway where there's a bathroom, and they go in the bathroom, and there is a cat. Presumably Kathy Davis's cat, bludgeoned on the floor. And red liquid everywhere. So they slowly enter the house even further, and they get to another room, the next room, and that happens to be the bedroom of 81-year-old Kathy Davis. She had also been bludgeoned with the hammer. And not only had she been bludgeoned, but he had also used his hands on her throat to end her life. She was 81 years old. And upon his autopsy, one of the things that they found was that she had scratch marks and claw marks all over his throat. from her. So it showed that she knew what he was doing to her. And she tried to stop him. She fought back. They believe, when they're tracing back the timeline, they're not positive, but they believe that that she and he had gotten into the altercation after he had left next door from introducing himself to the neighbors. He had came back, and that's when the two of them got into an argument, because it's believed that she either caught him or was discussing with him that she had already caught him turning off the fuse box to the mansion so that lights couldn't be used, because he had this sensitivity to light. So now another thing that his dad had forgotten to let Mrs. Davis know, that he had a propensity to go out and turn everybody's power off because he didn't like the light showing. So, thanks, Dad. But then they believed that after he did that, he got cleaned up, whatever, so he had the wherewithal, and then went back over to the neighbor's house to then get in a big fight with the neighbors and the contractor. And that he was just in this rage, this blind rage. They didn't know at first. They were trying to figure out, is this a substance that's making him do this? Bath salts were getting really, really popular at the time, and they were making people, there was literally a story about a man who ate someone's face being on these bath salts, that it made him that crazed. And so it's very possible. He's in the heart of Hollywood. He's down with all the partiers and all the young kids. And, he had never done anything like that before, reportedly. But who knows? You never know. So that was a wonder. Was he on some kind of substance that made him do these things? And like I said, they eventually recorded that his cause of D was traumatic injuries due to fall, accidental, because he had been seen climbing the wall above the driveway like Spider-Man. Apparently he had ran from the neighbors and ran across and ran up this long, kind of tall, like villa like wall, one of those cement walls that kind of has the terrace layers that go up and the greenery that comes down, and that he had apparently ran from the neighbors and ran up into the villa. So is that when he fell? Did he slip and fall and just, he was basically a victim of himself, of his own rage, without intending to be? So they wait a couple months, and toxicology finally comes back, though, and he's completely clean. There's nothing. He passed pretty much immediately when he fell. So anything that was in his system wouldn't have metabolized, wouldn't have passed what it was at that point, and he was obviously still under the influence of it. But there was nothing. Could he have had some unknown brain injury from that motorcycle crash? My best friend was in a very bad motorcycle accident, and he'd had what they called a closed head injury. And he healed. But there was always just something that was a little bit different about him. He'd had brain scans, he'd had neurological testing, anything you could think of, to make sure that he was free and clear and that he was completely healed. And his brain, on any scan, showed that his brain was perfect after about a year. But people that knew him best, we could never quite put our finger on it. But there was always something that was just a little tiny bit just caught you, just made you think, you know, his family who knew him the best, why didn't they get him help? I mean, I would think that even if you miss some of the smaller red flags in the beginning, I mean, most people that have a life that ends in violent tragedy like this, when you start talking to people and you get their history and you go back, you realize there were things going on from the time they were little children. We just don't hear that from them. Did they choose to ignore it because they really didn't see anything? Did they choose to ignore it because he made the money and he took care of his family and they needed him to continue to do that? And if he was in treatment or something like that, he wouldn't be making money. Could him getting help earlier have prevented this? Like, could even him have getting help before the motorcycle ride to clear his head? Would he have been in a mindset that night that he needed to go clear his head? And so he never would have been in a motorcycle accident. Or if the first time something odd happened, like he, you know, was in that person's house. I mean, that's weird. Talking about a baby. To me, if that were somebody I loved, I would have taken them somewhere. We would have gone to a doctor. We would have gone, because that's just not, it's just not right. It's not normal. It just really makes you wonder. Or was it one of those things, do you believe in complete fate? Where no matter what you do, no matter what circumstances you try, like even if you had a time machine to go back and change everything, that fate is fate and the inevitable would still happen. It's inevitable no matter what. Like the movie The Time Machine, where no matter what he did to go back, he went back to that day 1,000,000 times. And he changed every single thing about the beginning of that day, every single time. And no matter what he did, the love of his life still died that day. And it might have been a different thing. It might have been a different reason. It might have been a different action. But no matter what, she was destined to lose her life that day. Do you believe that? Do you believe that no matter what? If he got help, would he have kept on his medication? Would he have kept his therapy? Was it a matter of that even? I don't know. It's just sad. You see that happen more and more, but really talented young people who are in the Hollywood limelight, who are obviously having mental issues, and people are just letting them go. And letting them go on. And you've got Britney Spears. Their family made them that way. For money and entertainment. And you've got, you know, the Jacksons. There's another family that was like that. It just makes you wonder. Why didn't his parents, why didn't his dad, instead of dropping him off at a writer's villa, take him to an inpatient mental facility? I believe his actions showed that he was having mental issues and he could have been retained, at least on a hold, and probably been found there's something wrong. Maybe that woman's life could have been spared. I don't know. One of those things where we will never know the answer why, but I just thought it was interesting, though. I'd never known that full story about him, and he really was one of my favorite characters on Sons of Anarchy. And it was really sad to see him go. I kind of was salty about it the next season, I have to admit. But, but yeah, another one of my favorite shows. So yeah, check it out, and I'll put it in the description too. It's Death by Fame, Discovery Plus, Season 1, Episode 2, Man of Anarchy. I'm through Season 1. It was pretty good. They've got a girl on there from, that was the winner of The Voice. Grimes was her last name. She had a beautiful singing voice, and she was ended by a fan. There was another one that was she was this really pretty up-and-coming actress. I think there's one on there about Bam Margera, and I'm going to try and start Season 2 tomorrow, because starting at about, I believe, 4 or 5 o'clock, we're supposed to get the start of the biggest snowstorm of the year so far here in the Midwest. And I live in Michigan. And unfortunately, I live in the area that is supposed to be getting 7 to 10 inches of snow or more. So, yay me! And I'm sick. So that's even more fun, because it's already hard going out and getting stuff done I need to get done for my kids and just adulting in general. And now I'm also short. Now I'm going to be in a foot of snow everywhere I go. So, I'll be doing a lot of baking and hopefully a lot of nails and out getting some stuff done. But, let's see. I think my next project I'm going to try and do for a video is, because of the snow, do some snowflakes. I've got some kind of cute, I can't even find my words right now. Some cute ways of doing snowflakes, and some different colors, and also some cute sweater weather designs. I love the sweater nails. So do a few of those, and I'm going to do some baking, I think, and try and just enjoy this. Hopefully school's called off. We can all just sleep in, stay in our PJs, and relax. So that's really it for now. But let me leave you with this. Quando omni fluncus moritati. Roughly translates to, when all else fails, play dead. Have a great day, and cutsy out.
Then this life's gonna eat and make mistakes real fast, then you